Hi everyone, Michael here from Mirrors of Consciousness and creator of the Overfold Tarot and upcoming Arcanum X Tarot. I just wanted to do a little follow-up on the recent video I did on playing card cartomancy and yes or no questions, and just kind of expand that a little bit into yes/no questions in general. And hopefully this will be a shorter video, but who knows, most of you probably know me by now, that I ramble on. So there's this kind of idea in tarot circles that yes or no questions are to be avoided or discouraged among querents. So readers tend to not really favor yes or no questions. There are questions that are framed in a way that yield a yes or no answer. And it seems that in the cartomancy, the playing card cartomancy community, that stigma against yes or no questions is much less. It seems that the yes or no framing of a question it's a lot more favorable, and I find that kind of interesting. I have certainly been, in my tarot work for the first several years, and really just up until relatively recently, I've fallen into the same camp that the trend in tarot circles seems to follow, which is if a querent asks a yes or no question, to guide them toward reframing their question in a more open-ended or broader way that doesn't just yield that binary yes or no. And I think that the reasons for that are perfectly valid. I also, though, think that it's equally perfectly valid to just leave the question as it is. If a querent comes to you asking a question, and they frame it in a yes or no or a binary sort of way, it's totally okay to leave the question that way. And I think that querents know when they're asking a tarot reader or a card reader a yes or no question, that they're probably not going to get just yes or just no. They may want that, and that's fine. If you're doing a one card reading or a quick Instagram reading and they're paying $1 or $5 for your answer, like, okay, who cares? But I also find that most of the time when people ask a yes or no question, they're not just asking for an answer of yes or no, or maybe. They're asking, what will the outcome be of this situation? And it is framed in a, will the outcome be positive, like in my favor? Will it be a negative, not in my favor? But often they also want to know why, especially if it's a no. But it can be very useful to know if it's a yes, why is it a yes, or what to watch out for. Even though it's a yes, maybe there's things to watch out for, or maybe there's things that can make the yes even more favorable. And so even when they're framed in that binary way, I find that most yes/no questions are not really yes/no, but they're more yes but, or no because, or maybe and. So thinking of yes or no questions in that way, just changing for readers, just changing your mentality around when you receive a yes or no question, and changing your mentality around it and going, oh, well, I don't do yes or no questions. You might as well flip a coin, or might as well use a pendulum. And those are good tools. But go, okay, it's a yes or no question, and we can answer that. But I can, because tarot or because playing cards or because certain other tools are a little bit more sophisticated, you can receive the question and go, I can answer that question, and I can give the querent a little bit more insight as to why a particular answer will result. And I think that sometimes querents just don't know how to reframe a question, and sometimes you can actually waste a little bit of time making a querent reframe their question. It can be worthwhile to do that. I'm not saying don't do that, but it can also be it can also eat up time that might be more valuable if you just take the question in and go, right, a yes no question, and probably the querent wants to know yes or no and why. And so just take it in that way and go, okay, I'm going to go into the yes or no, but I'm going to spend the rest of this time, instead of making them reframe their question, I'm going to spend the rest of the time that they've booked with me to investigate the why and give the querent more information around why it's a yes or no. So in the Cartomancy 101 video that I posted recently, using playing cards, we talked about red or black. I'm going to do another video soon on going more into red or black and red or black combinations that continue that, but it's not necessarily yes or no, but it does talk about kind of positive or negative outcomes. But for this video, I wanted to more specifically just talk about yes or no, and give maybe one or two other yes or no techniques using cards in general. They don't have to be playing cards. So in that video, I discussed red or black, and if you're using playing cards, a simple way of yielding a yes or no answer is by just seeing how many red cards are there, how many black cards are there, and if it's mostly black, then it's a no. If it's mostly red, then it's a yes. Although there's a lot more nuance, and I'll go into that in other cartomancy videos. Another technique that I've been using, that I posted on my blog, which, like my YouTube, I've not updated a lot lately. In fact, I think I've been more active on YouTube than on my blog. But I did post an article on a technique that I came up with for yes or no questions using tarot. And again, it's with that mentality of yes or no and why. And sometimes, speaking of that, yes or no and when, or how strong of a yes or no is it. Like sometimes it's a no, but it's a soft no. I have a friend who asked me out to do social things. Do you want to go and see this? Do you want to go and do that? And I always respond, not always, but often always, respond, maybe. And she joked with me, saying, oh, well, I know what that means. That means no. And I said, no, it means maybe. Sometimes it's a yes. Sometimes it does mean no. It just means maybe. I might be able to be convinced, in other words, right? So sometimes, like, instead of yes or no being the only two possibilities, often there's a continuum between absolutely yes and no way ever. But there's a continuum. So and often, I mean, there are questions that are like yes, 100%, absolutely, or no way in hell. But more often than not, a yes or no is somewhere in between. It's like, yes, but if this happens, it could turn into a no. Or, not now, but maybe later. Or, I'm not that interested, but you could convince me. Or, probably not, but if you do this and this and this, it could turn into a yes. It's just my cat. Down, baby. Thank you. And so, anyway, so this tarot technique that I've been using for yes or no is using a complete deck of cards and thinking about and actually using a significator. But the significator isn't necessarily a court card. It can be any card at all. So you would think about the card that represents the situation, not the outcome that you want. I mean, you could, but represents the situation. An example might be, should I go on this meditation retreat? And so that framing is a yes or no. And a card that might represent a meditation retreat might be the Hermit. You could choose a different card. It could be Four of Swords or Four of Air might represent meditation retreat to you, or one of the Aces might represent that to you. But if you think about like what does it represent to me, for me it would probably be the Hermit. So I would look through my deck and find the Hermit card and focus on it. What some readers might call charging the card. So focusing on the card and kind of internalizing that image and internalizing how that image pertains to your situation. So visualizing the meditation retreat, and maybe some of the reasons why you want to go or not want to go, or both, and just including all of that, kind of infusing all of that into the card. And then place the card in the deck, shuffle the deck, and then after you shuffle the deck, here I'll quickly shuffle. It's a theoretical question. I'm not actually considering going on a meditation retreat, at least not yet. But maybe it'll tell me that I should. So I'll just do a quick shuffle. In this case, I'm not going to take the answer too seriously because I'm not really taking the correct amount of time to really sit with the card and and I had, speaking of aces, I had an ace of Earth just fly out, so that's kind of interesting. So and then from there, once you've shuffled, you decide you're gonna cut the deck into two piles. Before cutting, decide which half of the deck is going to be yes or no, or which pile is going to be yes or no. I would usually consider the top of the deck, the top half-ish, to be yes, and the bottom half to be no. But you can do it really any way you want, and you cut the deck in half, or roughly. Usually the first cut, don't try to go for a perfect half cut. Take the first cut. So if the first time you grab the top of the pile, it's not quite half, try not to recut. Try to just take whatever that cut was. And then you turn over each pile, and you look for your card to find where's the card. And as it turns out, there's my Hermit card in the yes pile. But it's not right at the top. So if I turned over the deck and the Hermit was like the very first card, then that would be a very strong yes. That's on this side, this yes side. That would be a very strong yes. And then the further down the pile you go toward the bottom of the pile, the more weakened that yes or no answer is. Then you can get a little bit more depth, more of the reasons behind the yes or no, or the conditions surrounding the timing or the strength or weakness of that yes or no by looking at other cards in the pile. So in this case, looking at the top, what was the top card when I turned over the pile, the 3 of fire. It's kind of saying, okay, it's in the yes pile, but maybe, and it's the hermit wasn't too far down. It was kind of about about a quarter to a third of the way through the pile. So it's saying, yes, a meditation retreat would be a good idea, but maybe not now, because now you might need to focus on getting some work done, focus your efforts on creative endeavors for the moment, which is true because I have a deck to finish, as you guys know, and several other projects on the go. So that would be kind of a reason why. It could also be a reason why it's a yes. It might go, okay, maybe not a meditation retreat, but maybe you do need to take a retreat of sorts, cloister yourself away like a hermit, to get your creative endeavors more going. Not necessarily done. 3 isn't really a card of being done, but to get further progress along there. And then you might look at the last card in the pile, which might give you some insight as to, well, what would you gain from this yes if you do take that decision to go on a meditation retreat or cloister yourself away, or however it is. This would be, so in this case, Queen of Air. So a meditation retreat might gain me a better consolidation between my thinking brain, thinking half, and my more emotional or intuitive half. They could be interpreted in a lot of different ways, but I'm just going to go with that for now. And then you can also look at the cards that are adjacent, like immediately adjacent to the situation card. And so I get here the Magician and the King of Water, which interestingly is the same elements as the Queen of Air, just a reversal of the balance of the elements. And so that's kind of interesting. In this case, I would actually interpret it similarly, that the mental and emotional or intuitive aspects could be more balanced, and that's underneath that hermit card. So there's maybe that's maybe an additional support for saying, yes, you should do this, and here's a strong reason why you might consider doing that. And then the Magician is on top of it, so that's another kind of strengthener, that says, yeah, this would be a good idea to take that initiative and investigate a retreat of some kind, a meditation retreat. Or maybe because the yes card, the meditation card, was in the yes pile, but not right on the surface, then it might be saying a meditation retreat might not be appropriate for right now for your needs, but a strengthening of your meditation practice might be apropos, right? So that's just one way that I've been working with yes or no questions when I use tarot. And of course, we could apply that. You could really use it with any kind of card deck. You could use it with playing cards. You can still infuse a certain card with the situation, split it into 2 piles, find that card. And in that case, it would be very different, because you could infuse like the Ace of Spades with, it's like let's say your choice is about, um, should I cut let's say, should I cut this person out of my life? Say it's somebody who, um, you have mixed feelings about. They're enriching your life in one way, but then also kind of not. I mean, I don't want to use the word toxic to describe people, but that seems to be, maybe they're a narcissist, and you recognize that, but there are things that you both value about the friendship, but maybe it's a little bit imbalanced right now for some reason or another, and maybe because you care about that person, there's hope that they're going to change, that this is just a wave, because people do change. I know people like to say people don't change, and kind of fundamentally, I think people don't really change that much. But sometimes people go through rough patches, and they just, sometimes people are a little bit more self-centered for a period of time, and then they kind of, they get over that. Um, or whatever, whatever it is, like, just people do change, and go through different phases that can seem very fundamental and yet aren't. They seem really fundamental right now, and then 5 years later it's like, oh, that seems like a different person when you look back. So let's say that it's a friend, or an acquaintance, somebody in your life that you're considering cutting out of your life. That could be represented by an ace of spades, and the question might be, okay, should I cut this person out of my life? You can shuffle, find the ace of spades, shuffle, cut, yes or no pile, find the ace of spades. Is it in the yes or no pile? If you turn over the yes and it's the ace of spades right there, then that's a definite yes. That's like a, yeah, for your health, for your well-being, cut this person out of your life. Maybe, wish them well, all of that stuff. Don't necessarily do it with an ill intent, but yeah, for your well-being, cut them out. If it comes up no right away on the no pile, don't cut this person out of your life, then it might be, maybe you're just the person that this person needs. Maybe they are in one of those phases where they're going through a difficult time, and they're just acting out in poor ways. Maybe you really need to stay in that person's life for their health, but also for your own. You might be enriched by staying there for that person, or retaining that person in your life. And then, of course, the further down the piles that ace of spades goes, the weaker the yes or no is. So let's say if it was in the yes pile, but on the very, very bottom, then it might be, instead of cutting the person out of your life completely, it might be take some distance. Just, let them still be in your life, but take some distance. Take a generous step back, and let them figure out their stuff. Maybe wait for them to come back to you, but don't sever the tie completely. This is completely theoretical. It came, I was trying to think of a positive way to use ace of spades, because if you used the other technique, the red and black technique, and you asked the question, you turn over cards, you could get, depending on how large your spread was, you could get all spades. And so I just wanted to use an example that might indicate using a spade, particularly a card that tends to be considered one of the most negative cards, the ace of spades. I wanted to give an example of how you could use that card in a more positive frame, in a more positive light, because the cards do have nuance, and even in cartomancy, in playing cartomancy, of course, there is a little bit more directness to whether cards are positive or negative, but there's still nuance, and there's as much nuance as you're willing to get into with the cards. There was one more thing I wanted to say about that, but I seem to have forgotten what it was. So I'll leave that there. And oh, right. So I just wanted to finish the thought that you could really do it with any set of cards. It could be even though it wouldn't be a traditional way to use lenormand or sibilia or kipper cards or certain oracle decks, but you might have an oracle deck that you really like the artwork of, but you don't really understand that oracle system yet, and you haven't spent the time to learn that oracle system, or you just don't use that deck that much, or maybe you do. Maybe you love that oracle deck and you know it really well. It doesn't really matter, but the point is you could choose one card in that deck, in any deck, to represent your situation and put it in a yes or no pile. So like a great example might be, if you're using lenormand, take the letter card and go and say your question is, will I receive this package today? That seems to be a common kind of mundane question that people playing with cards. I mean, I wouldn't pay for a reading to answer that question, but it's readers kind of like to use these kind of mundane questions sometimes to practice their skills, which is great. So that might be a question of will my letter come today, or will my check come today? If you're expecting it through the mail, will my check come today, or will I receive that email today from this person, or will I receive that package today? You could take the letter card from the Lenormand and again kind of charge it, infuse it with that your situation, your expectation of that letter, and put it in the deck, shuffle, cut it into 2 piles, find the predetermine before you cut which pile is going to be yes, which pile is going to be no. Find the letter card, and there's your answer. And then you can go further by reading the other cards surrounding it, and then you would use Lenormand techniques and interpretations for the cards surrounding. But the cutting and finding that significator card is itself not really a technique that belongs to any particular cartomancy style. So I invite you to give that yes, no, and why technique a try. Give it a go, try it out, try it a few times. It may not always work for you, but as you work with it a little bit more, hopefully you'll start to get some sense of it and how well it works for you. And if you want to see the blog post that I did about it, that basically says almost the same stuff that I said here, I'll post that down below, just because I know some of you like to read instead of watch. And I'll return soon with some more cartomancy videos. Bye for now.